else who is joining us today will join shortly. So this is a session. Once again, welcome warmly to the session, How to Become a King's Undergraduate Research Fellow, during which you can find out more about the KURF program. This session is a part of the King's Edge Festival. We are halfway through the festival. It started on Monday. We already delivered lots of events, but we have more events coming up as well. So make sure to keep an eye on King's Edge website. There is a festival program available there as well. The events are delivered online. Some of them happen in person as well. This session today is dedicated to King's Undergraduate Research Fellowships Program. My name is Magdalena. I'm the member of King's Edge team. And I'm very happy to deliver this session for you today. We have brilliant guests joining us today, and I will introduce all of them to you in a second. But before I do that, I would like to quickly walk you through what will be covered today during this event. I will give you a very brief introduction. What is KURF and how it works from a more practical point of view, should you wonder how exactly KURF works. And then we'll move on to the main part of this event, which are two panel discussions. The first panel discussions will include King's academic members of staff who supervised King's Undergraduate Research Fellows in the past. They will share their experience and tips and insight into the scheme from a supervisor perspective. Then we will move on to the second panel, this time with the students. So previously successful fellows who already worked with King's supervisors and King's academics on actual research projects. And as promised, towards the end, there will be a time for a Q&A. You can use the chat, you can use the raise hand function, whatever you prefer and feel more comfortable at. So what exactly is KURF? As we know, it stands for King's Undergraduate Research Fellowships and is an amazing opportunity that gives you a chance to work with a King's academic as a research fellow on their actual research project by implementing KURF into our King's Edge portfolio. We are reflecting the vision of King's as a research-led university. So it is an opportunity dedicated to students who are interested in research, but not only, because KURF is also a great career opportunity. It showcases a wide range of transferable skills that you can gain thanks to this experience, not only just research skills. So students who are interested in research, but also students who want to have an interesting opportunity featured on their CV should definitely apply for KURF. There are numerous benefits arising from your participation in KURF. One of them, of course, is a bursary. You receive a payment from us for your work on KURF. You receive a payment of £1,500 for 150 hours of your fellowship work. On top of that, you also receive a research award that's featured later on your HERE record. So you get a formal recognition for your participation in KURF. And again, this is a wonderful award to have featured on your HERE record to showcase later on in your job applications to your employer and also in your academic applications, because many KURF students actually do decide to pursue academia further and apply for master's or PhD. So that's a great thing to showcase in those kinds of applications. And our previously successful fellows have wonderful achievements in their portfolio, something that very often undergraduate students are not able to have otherwise. For example, they have been named as co-authors of academic publications. They have participated and presented at international and national conferences. They curated exhibitions and they participated in groundbreaking lab work. More about that later when you will hear from our fellows about their actual experience. So how does KURF work from a more practical point of view? Student applications usually open towards the end of March. More exact dates will be announced in the second semester. You will definitely not miss this information. You will receive an email from King's Edge. We also share this information on our Instagram. Make sure to have a look. We're called KCL King's Edge. But usually this is this time range. Applications open towards the end of March and they are open for about a month until the end of April. And then there is only one way to apply for KURF. You apply online via anonymous application form. You have about a month to submit this application. Applications are being assessed by project supervisors. So it is not our team who makes a decision. It is a designated project supervisor for each project. Applications are online, and our team supports the organization of this application process. We reveal the identity later, but it is the project supervisor who makes a decision. Sometimes optional interviews may be arranged. In that context, of course, anonymity is disrupted, but transparency is not, because our team still acts there as almost a HR team and organizes those interviews. It is optional. Some project supervisors decide to organize those interviews. Some project supervisors don't need that and base their decision solely on the application form. Eventually, the decision email is sent to all students towards the end of May, and all students are being notified of the outcome, both successful and unsuccessful. So we don't leave any student unnotified. And then we organize a similar session, I would like to say, like this one, with more practical info that is not necessarily relevant right now, but we have a student induction session. So all students are very thoroughly walked through the whole process, including the payments as well. This session is usually organized at the start of June. We usually have more than one because we have quite a few fellows on the program, and the session is also delivered online. So for those students who are unable to attend, we also have a recording. And then fellowships start. They can take place between mid-June and end of September. Again, exact dates will be announced shortly in the second semester. And then the exact arrangement of dates is to be discussed between the successful fellow and a supervisor, as long as the general start date and the general end date are maintained and the student does not work longer than 150 hours. That is absolutely fine by our team, so we can flexibly discuss it with your supervisor. It is a summer program. Different events and things happen during the summer, of course. So as long as there is a clear communication maintained between yourself and your supervisor, everything should be fine. You receive the bursary payment from us at the start of the fellowship, so mid-June. Already there, you will receive the whole payment from us. And then you have time to, first of all, complete your fellowship, your 150 hours of work, and eventually, towards the end, you submit the final assignment, which is a research poster which showcases your research project, your supervisor's research project in a visually compelling way, and a reflective essay, thanks to which you reflect upon your journey and the skills that you have gained. You have time until mid-October to submit that final assignment, and that assignment qualifies you to receive the research award. So you receive the payment at the start and research award at the end once you complete the final assignment. And once this is completed, towards the end of the year, you will receive an accredible certificate with a LinkedIn badge as well that you can share on your LinkedIn, and research award featured on your HERE record. So students who are final year students and are graduating in summer will not have a research award featured on their HERE record during the graduation, but it will be updated later. The HERE team will update it for you. So just a note here. There are different ways how you can participate in KURF, because in order to meet the needs of students who have different responsibilities and commitments, especially during summer, we have decided to provide different duration options. So a full-time duration option is 150 hours long across 4 weeks, and you receive the payment of 1,500 pounds. And part-time option is similar. You receive exactly the same payment and you work also for 150 hours, but you can work on your fellowship a bit longer, across 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8, or even 8 to 10. As long as your supervisor agrees to that, that's absolutely fine by us as well. And then lastly, there is a job share option, which is 50% less. So you work for 75 hours and you receive a bursary payment of 750 pounds. Each option is equal. So full-time option students are not prioritized over part-time or job share option students. However, you need to make sure that this duration option is being offered by your project supervisor. And then we publish a catalog with all research projects on the day applications open. So you can browse through all of those projects, and the catalog indicates the duration options that are being offered. And this decision is up to a project supervisor. So some projects offer all duration options, some offer two, some offer just one. So you need to make sure that this certain option is being offered on your project. And other than that, there shouldn't be any problem with your selection of the duration option. Those duration options have been particularly well received by students from the past. Here we have a testimony from a KURF fellow from 2 years ago. This was a student of a working class background with no parental funding source, and they have admitted that if it wasn't for this option, they probably would not have even considered KURF. So I would like to make use of this moment right now and say that KURF is open to all undergraduate students, but we particularly welcome applications from students of widening participation backgrounds, and we're trying to make the program more and more inclusive for everyone. So what can you and can you not do as a KURF applicant? You can apply for a project that is not specific to your degree or to your faculty. We actually encourage those interdisciplinary collaborations. We will have some examples of that during our discussion panels as well. However, please do make sure that you meet the desirable criteria for that set project. Some projects list them, some projects don't. And again, everything is available in our catalog of research projects. So do make sure to have a look if your project that you are interested in lists some specific desirable criteria and if you meet them. Other than that, you're welcome to apply for any project that you would like. You can apply as a first year student, as a final year student, as long as you are an undergraduate student, that's absolutely fine. International students can apply as well, of course, and there shouldn't be any problem with the payment because the payment is not a salary, the payment is a bursary. So you receive the whole payment in one go from student grants. There's no taxation on it because it is a bursary, it is a grant, not a salary. You can apply without prior research experience, of course. In fact, KURF is meant to be your introduction to the world and to the environment of research. But again, please make sure that desirable criteria for the project that you are interested in, if there are any, are in line with your experience as well. Of course, different things happen, especially during summer, and if there is any other opportunity that you also would like to get involved in, and it, for example, clashes with KURF and you become successful with your application, you are welcome to withdraw your application, and you should let us know as soon as you know. KURF is a summer program, so of course some students during summer are not in London, and there is a possibility to participate in KURF remotely if a research project offers this option. And then again, there is a wide range of fully virtual projects, of hybrid projects, and of projects that are in person. So you can participate in KURF remotely, but make sure to check the delivery of your project in the research catalog, and it will be indicated for each specific project. If you have any doubts, you can, of course, check that with a project supervisor as well. Sometimes a project supervisor may offer you to continue to work on the project beyond those 150 allocated hours. You can agree, but it is also your perfect right to reject that offer. And please note that beyond 150 hours of work, your KURF experience ends. So the KURF team is not involved in that anymore. And also we are not involved in additional reimbursements for that. On the other hand, there are a few things that you cannot do as a KURF applicant. So you cannot apply for more than one project. So as I have said before, you're welcome to apply for a project outside of your degree, outside of your faculty, but make sure to make this selection and make this decision correctly, because you can apply for only one project. If you were a previously successful KURF fellow before, you cannot apply again. So you can be a KURF fellow only once during your time as an undergraduate student at King's. If you were unsuccessful before, even if you made it to the interview stage, you're of course more than welcome to apply. And we have some examples of students who were unsuccessful once and then they were successful because they made a really good use of this experience. But if you were successful, you cannot apply. If you are a final year student of an integrated master's program, you cannot apply for a KURF either. And if your project does not offer a virtual option, you cannot in this context participate in KURF remotely. So once again, please do make sure to have a look at the catalog of research projects. And this is everything from me. I hope this was informative. Thank you so much for your attention. And let's move on right now to the main part of our event and panel discussion. Number one, the first panel discussion will be with KURF project supervisors who supervised KURF fellows before in the past, at least once, or in many cases, actually more than once. So they will have a lot of experience and tips to share with you. So let me welcome our brilliant guests today. Thank you so much for joining us today. We do appreciate your time. We are joined today by Dr. Samuel Evans, who is a lecturer in neuroimaging, representing Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology, and Neuroscience. We also have on our panel Dr. Soterios Loizou, who's a senior lecturer in commercial law, representing the School of Law today. Thank you so much for joining us to Dr. Amel Zaire, who's a senior lecturer in physics, representing the Faculty of Natural, Mathematical, and Engineering Sciences. And last but not least, of course, we are joined by Dr. Philippa Sa, who's a reader in applied economics representing King's Business School. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. And let's start our discussion panel. We have a lot of questions, so I might not ask everyone the same question, but I will try to be as comprehensive as possible. So at first, I would like to ask you, what kind of things are you looking for in an undergraduate research fellow, and what sort of tips you could share with students who are applying? Samuel, can we start with you?
Oh yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, well, are you talking about the application or actually when people are doing the job or both?
The application.
The application, particularly. So I guess what I'm looking at are two things. So one is people that show a real interest. So if they can kind of communicate the fact that they've maybe gone away and done a little bit of research about the topic, and maybe mention they've read a paper or they've found a particular aspect of the topic interesting. That's one thing for me. And also, I guess for me, it's about skills. So I'm often thinking about a particular project that needs to get done. And so I'm really looking for someone that I know will be able to do that job and kind of get it finished within that time frame. So that's me.
Thank you so much. What about you, Philippa? What are you looking for in an application?
So very much the same as well. So typically the projects, I have had two KURF projects and they were both empirical. So they were about analyzing data, putting data together. And so, typically I would look for a student who has done some data analysis before, so would have done some econometrics before. And I understand this is probably quite restrictive in terms of the interdisciplinarity, but yes, so that it's important for me for the project that there is some kind of experience with data.
Thank you so much. And Soterios, how does it look like from your perspective when you're approaching the KURF applications from students?
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and congratulations on hosting this discussion today. Actually, I share the views of my colleagues. The very first thing that I look for in an application is excitement about the project itself. And a student cannot be excited about a project without having some kind of basic research conducted by themselves with regard to that particular topic. They have either heard about this in class, or they have read a paper about that particular topic, or they have just Googled what the topic is about, and they have gained a basic understanding of what the research goals are. Now, of course, I do not expect the students to have research skills that a PhD candidate or an LLM candidate has, but they can definitely do some basic research to understand what the topic is, identify in the first place their own suitability for the project, illustrate their excitement, and if they have some additional skills, for instance, the ability to use large data sets or create databases, that is great. But this is not required. As long as there is excitement, and as long, at least for me, as long as the student is excited, I can see that on the application and they seem like a self-starter, then that is enough for me and they can take it from there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Amel, what advice could you share with prospective applicants?
Hello everyone. So in my side, it's a little bit different because I've been putting projects which were physics focused and also projects that were not physics focused. So I was looking for, in that case, student who comes from different departments, even different faculties to take over the work. So it really depends on the project. When it's physics focused, it's generally linked to our research line, and I need to have a student who is very motivated to embark into a research line with us. So I'm looking for someone who is very, very motivated to learn. I'm not necessarily looking for someone who knows. And I think I am particularly interested in someone who can work in a team. So I really looked into the ability to communicate. So sometimes I also run interview for selecting students. But what I want to see in the application is really the dedication on being part of a team and being a team player. And when it concerns projects that are not necessarily directly in physics, so I had a project, for example, with informatics students, which was about building a virtual reality version of my lab for outreach and for research and to explain the physics for people in general. So in that case, I was looking for students who has already some skills in virtual reality, which we didn't. We had all the devices, but we needed someone who knows a little bit about coding with those devices. And then we were teaching them the physics. So they learned the physics on our side. They learned the interest in the topic. And then we tried to deliver something that was useful for the student community. So that's what I'm looking for. So motivation, not necessarily in the topic, definitely team working and dedication to these 150 hours of the project as well.
Thank you. Fantastic tips. The next question is one of my favorite that students very often ask, and it is, what would be, on the other hand, the red flags of the application? So the things that you are absolutely not looking for in a student's application, and something that would make, in your eyes, almost disqualify the candidate at the very start and reject them. So Terius, anything from your perspective?
Well, I think that I will echo what we have already noted and my colleagues have noted as well. If there is no excitement, if there is just a delineation of qualifications of the particular applicant without an explanation why these qualifications could be helpful and useful to the project, or why they opted for that particular project other than, say, for instance, being interested in pursuing a career in law, that is amazing. But why private international law or commercial law that I do, and not criminal law? That is something that tells me, one, that yes, there is some kind of interest in the project, generally speaking, but there is no really excitement there about the particular topic, the particular type of law. There is no delineation of any skill set with regard to that topic at hand. And of course, it doesn't show the very first thing that I look for in an application, that the student, a self-starter, is motivated by themselves, and they have already done some research and they understand the research goals in the first place.
Yeah, that's very important. Thank you for sharing. And Filipa, what about you? Are there any red flags that make you disqualify the candidate and reject them at the very start?
So I think in my experience, in this recent project we had many good applicants, and then it's very difficult to decide. So I don't think there was such a thing as a bad application, but it was more about comparing the different applicants and trying to find the best fit. And I'm sure there were many applicants there that would have been very good as well. So it became quite difficult to select. And I don't think there was a thing as a bad application. So in the end, I found it really hard. And I ended up thinking, okay, if it's a first year student, maybe it doesn't have as much experience. So maybe I'll go for a second year or final year student. I ended up choosing a final year student who did a very good job over the summer. But in a way, it's kind of, if I say being a first year student is a red flag, it's not. We would like to give everyone an opportunity if the application is strong and people are enthusiastic, because you've got to start somewhere. But it's more like it becomes so competitive that in the end, you just go on this kind of criteria of, okay, maybe I take a student who has a bit more experience. But it's very difficult.
Yeah, of course. And it's a very good point to make as well that KURF is a very competitive program. So being here and listening to all of those tips will definitely help, hopefully. But yeah, each year we receive about 2,000, 3,000 applications. So yeah, it's very popular among all undergraduate students. You all touched upon that a little bit, but I would like to ask in more detail as well. If a certain student is very interested in your project and they would really like to become a research fellow with you, but they don't really have a specific knowledge on that subject, but they have an interest, would it be possible for them to apply and to be considered? In other words, how much knowledge do you expect a student to have on that topic before applying? And also, how much does the subject they study impact your decision, if it does at all? Amel, what do you think about that?
So what I think is that I usually say to the student that I do not require them to know about the research in depth. What I need them to do is to have minimum organizational type of skills, basically. So I really do think that I can teach, and that's also part of the KURF, to be frank, to actually teach them the research and the research way. So this is their first experience. So I'm not expecting them to know how research is performed, and that's our job actually, to share this knowledge with them and to give them the first experience. So this is on our hand. But I would say that really for me, a very excellent KURF is when someone is super dedicated, super motivated, very happy to learn, and kind of like not coming with already a formatted mind, if it makes sense, not coming with already expectation, because this type of project are have a lot of freedom for starting from a point and then developing, and it really depends on the fellow, not necessarily on the skills but on the capability of learning. That's really can go into one direction. So I had some project where the students were producing something, building something. I had students who basically made a design and now it's part of a patent. I had students who actually did a very good research like study, and it's part of an article and they are co-authors. So it really depends on the student.
Thank you so much. That's very reassuring, actually. So thank you for sharing that. And Samuel, what do you think about that? And any insight you could share on that?
Yeah, I sort of would echo that point that I'm not really looking for knowledge per se, and that's in some ways the easiest thing for somebody to pick up. It's more about the skills that are often kind of a bit more hard won. So in terms like programming and statistics. And I guess also just going back to all of the personality factors that people have been talking about, particularly about being being able to evidence being a self-starter, because that's what we really, well, at least I'm really looking for is someone who can kind of do some of the kind of independent thought, go away, struggle with a problem, come back and ask the right sorts of questions in order to kind of to push through. So that sort of having that kind of energy, self-starter, motivation is a really thing alongside the skills for me, and less so the particular knowledge. So I'm quite happy to take someone from another department, for example, but I would be looking for someone that that I know will be able to do some of the technical things.
Thank you so much. Again, super reassuring. So thank you for sharing. So we know that this is not really what project supervisors are looking for in an application in terms of knowledge about the project. Also, the prior research experience is not required. So on the other hand, what would you say are the examples of things that students can include in their application? Because students very often ask us, so what do I actually talk about in my application? Philippa, could you give us some insight?
I think what helps is to mention any previous research experience. So you may have worked on, projects in your first year or second year of undergraduate studies where you did some research. So that's very good to mention in the application, to say, I've worked on this research project where I've collected some data and done some data analysis or some literature review, so that we can see that, the applicant has some prior research experience. And, at the technical level, if the project that you are applying for is an empirical project, it would be useful to say that, if you can use some statistical software or econometric software, that kind of like more technical skills that you've got. I think those are useful things to include in the application.
Thank you. And Amel, what do you think? What would be the example of something that a student can include in a KURF application?
So I totally agree with Philippa. Any previous experience, or I would say also maybe mentioning what they want to learn out of this project. That is also equally important, I would say, because it means they have a goal or motivation and excitement to learn a particular technique or develop a particular knowledge. So that's one thing I would put if I were a KURF applicant. And if I were a KURF applicant, I think I would also be extremely honest on the reason why I'm applying now. So there are the possibility to apply in first, second, third year, and fourth year, but at a different year of your study, you may not have the same background or same motivation. So be very honest on the reason why, and I think this is very important. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Before we move on to questions about what happens during the fellowship, because this is something that students are very much interested in as well, I would like to ask all of you to share one brief, concise piece of advice that you could have with KURF applicants, something to remember about and keep at the back of their minds when they are applying. Soterius, can we start with you?
Can I actually say two things? The first one is apply. The first one is apply. Without an application, there is definitely a rejection. So make sure that you apply. It is a great opportunity for all students, and I think it's a great extracurricular, let's put it this way, activity. But the advice that I would like to share is do some research on the topic. It is not just the general topic, but the specific topic, because you will be married to that topic for quite some time, for 150 hours, and you do not want to spend time on something that you do not really understand or like. So that's my advice.
Thank you. I can only applaud that. Yes, please apply for KURF, because even applying is a great experience on its own, and you can use it later as well. Samuel, what would be your one advice, one tip for prospective applicants?
I guess my tip would be to make your application specific to the project. So, don't write something that you could have written for any of the other projects on the sheet, on the booklet. Try and kind of make it specific to the research questions and the work that the supervisor's doing. Be my advice.
Yes, no generic applications. Thank you so much. Amel, your advice?
So my advice is to be proactive. So before you apply, you are allowed to contact the team and the PI to ask questions and to also meet people. And during the project, being proactive, again, just not lose any contact with the group, coming as much as possible on site, I would say, to interact, but not only interacting with the science project, but also just the social life of the group, just to know how a research group works. So proactivity.
Yes, thank you so much. And lastly, Philippa, what would be your one tip for prospective applicants?
Well, I don't have anything to add, really. I think it would be choose the project carefully, choose something you are excited about and interested in, and yes, make your application specific so that we can see that you are actually interested in that area of research and not just, doing a generic application.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thankfully, the application window is long enough so students can browse through the catalog very thoroughly and select the one that applies to them the most. So finally, the student is being selected. They are successful as your KURF fellow and they start the fellowship. So students often wonder, what kind of support do you provide during the fellowship? What kind of things would they be doing? And what would be the day in their life as a KURF fellow? Like Amel, could you give us some insight into that?
Okay, so at least from my perspective, because I won't consider that this is the same everywhere, but so the lifetime of the life of a KURF student in my group is basically the KURF student is embedded in the group. So you are part of all the group meetings, all the activities related to discussing articles when we have journal clubs and these kind of things. You see your supervisor almost every day, but like with a real one-to-one of at least 1 hour once a week to see the progress and to help. You usually are working directly with the supervisor, but sometimes you may work with a PhD student and postdoc, simply because PIs sometimes have to go to conferences or do something else, managing the group essentially. And then that's it. You have essentially a folder on the OneDrive where you put all your materials for archiving, and we're discussing these materials during the meetings. If you are developing a code, we usually put it on our GitHub Enterprise, and then we comment it as well. And so there is a trace and a history of your work in the group. And you appear on the website of the group, of course, as a member of the group.
Wonderful. And Philippa, what about your projects and your fellowships?
So basically both of my KURF projects were kind of more online than in person because my students were not in London, but that's not a problem at all. And they both involved kind of data cleaning and putting data together, collecting and merging data sets. And, I was in touch with my KURF students very often, even more than once a week. So we had meetings online on Teams. So this summer, my student was in China, but we met, at least once a week, if not sometimes even more, depending. It was a bit patchy. Like there were some weeks when she was doing other things in the summer as well. And, we both got the flu at some point, so we couldn't really continue. So we had a bit of disruption, but there were other weeks where we were intensively working on it, and we met, like two, three times during the week. So it's very flexible, I would say. It really depends on, what's going on for me with my research, what's going on with the student and other jobs they may have going during the summer. So I think that's a big attraction of KURF, is that you can make it work around the schedule that you have. So it's very flexible.
Great. Thank you so much. And I want to say a massive thank you to all of our project supervisors joining us today. We are running out of time. I know we have a lot of more questions to our project supervisors. I hope our project supervisors can stay until the end of the session, maybe for a Q&A, should you have any questions to them. Of course, understandable if you need to go. But once again, please join me in a virtual round of applause for our project supervisors. And once again, thank you so much for sharing your brilliant advice and tips and insight with our students. I definitely think they find it helpful. And let's move on now to a discussion panel with our fellows. There will be time for a Q&A for everybody towards the end of the session, so please bear with us. And well, let me welcome our previously successful fellows that are joining us for the second discussion panel today. Some of them completed KURF in summer 2023-2024, and some of them completed KURF summer before. Thank you so much for joining us. We are joined by Liberty, student of psychology, who participated in a project, very long title, so bear with me, examining the effectiveness of heart rate variability biofeedback training on cognitive and psychological emotion regulation. Thank you so much for being here with us. We are also joined by Yvette, the student of history and international relations, who worked on the project Sound, Music and Climate Change in Spiritual Communities. And lastly, from the cohort of fellows from 2023-2024, Jaren, student of neuroscience, who completed a project policy-focused research in palliative and life care. Thank you so much for being with us today. And two more fellows from the previous cohort of a KURF student, Medant, who studies computer science and completed a project investigating the use of AI in protecting senior citizens from cyber criminals. And last but not least, Aldo, student of philosophy and modern languages, German, with a year abroad, who completed a project leadership programs at world-leading universities. Once again, thank you so much for being here with us today. And the first question that I would like to ask you seems almost like an obvious one, but I'm sure other students will appreciate it. So how exactly did you approach submitting an application? What did you highlight and what advice could you share? Liberty, can we start with you, please?
Yes, of course. And nice to meet you. Thanks for inviting me today. In my application, I talked about a few things. I brought in experience in my undergraduate as I'd done the first 2 years of my course already. I also talked about my personal reasons for applying and my personal experiences just in life and in various other things, just to highlight my sort of passion for the topic. I also was fortunate to have done a placement year working as a researcher. So I discussed various skills that I'd developed as well throughout that year, as well as just other experiences, whether that be sort of in hospitality jobs or just jobs outside where I could apply some skills to the project, as well as volunteering. And I'm in the ROPPN, so clinical sort of related things as well. If you have done volunteering, is great to write to. I think a combination of all those things.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Liberty. Vet, what about you? How do you think you approached this application process?
Yeah, so my approach is it's quite different because I had very few experiences in terms of when it comes to research. So my main two things which I did was, and the most important point is the passion. I think it's very easy to firstly read if someone is actually passionate about the project or not. And the second thing was not to underestimate general work mundane experiences. For example, I worked in a cafe. I did other general things like I did volunteering. I did work in the cafe. So stuff like those, which aren't really high profile, high tech, like business summit internships or any of that. But it's very important how you can use those simple experiences and you just talk about the skills and stuff you learn from those, and then how you write and navigate it towards. So me working in the cafe, I learned about how to effective time management, logistical. I was able to comprehend and understand big information, and that was useful for my project. So I kind of used those experiences into my application. So that was kind of like a very different kind of strong point for me in that sense.
Thanks so much. And what do you think made your application successful, and what made your application set apart, Jaren? I know your story is interesting because you applied outside of your faculty, actually. So could you give us some details there as well? And what do you think made your application successful?
As previously mentioned, I wrote about just how passionate I was about the project, but I also mentioned a lot about how I wanted to just expand, and learn more things out of my comfort zone. So I mentioned about skills that I've learned, say in my degree, but also the fact that I'm still open to other possibilities, and I have that drive to learn new things. I mentioned that quite a lot, on top of work experiences and stuff that I've done to improve on my communication skills and my teamwork skills. But yeah, I just mainly mentioned about just how much I wanted to just keep options open and like have different opportunities.
And would you say that pursuing a project outside of your faculty posed more difficulties and more challenges to you, or maybe you had some advantage because you had some fresh perspective there? What do you think?
There were some difficulties, mainly in terms of concepts, because I've never really done anything to do with public policy before. However, I do have a bit of knowledge in palliative care, so it was like a really good bridging experience, I would say. So yeah, there were some like difficulties, but the team I worked with, they were really kind and really patient, and they were always willing to explain new things to me. So yeah, it wasn't overwhelming. It was like a good step from, as I said before, like just a bridge basically between like what I know and what I want to learn. Yeah.
Very interesting, sir. Thank you so much for sharing. And Medant, what do you think made your application successful? As far as I know, you have participated and attended a similar session like this one before in the past. Do you think it was helpful and made your application successful?
Hello. Yes. So I attended the in-person one. I think it happens closer to the application, and that was very insightful in, I think, making my application successful. I basically tried to strike a balance in between how passionate I was. So my topic was AI in cybercrime, basically. And I had not done any cybersecurity, even though I'm from a computer science background. I had not touched the sector of cybersecurity before. So, but what I did was I had from many years ago, I did some like personal project research about how cybercrime centers operate, especially in India, because that's the country I come from. And a lot of cyber criminals are from my country, and I made a point to mention that as well. So doing that, like just small amount of research in my teenage years, and tying that up to this curve is it. I think it proved to be quite crucial after I got the curve as well, and he said that that made me stand out as well. So as Ved also mentioned, that having your mundane experiences, you should be able to tie it up to the application somehow, and that will greatly help you. Of course, I had some programming experience beforehand, which also helped me. So yeah, like just strike a balance in between your passion and the skill set that you have.
Thank you. Very important tip. Thank you for sharing. And Aldo, do you have any advice for students who would like to participate in KURF and would like to really apply, but they're unsure how to select the project exactly? Do you have any advice how you actually approach the process and how you made that selection? It is very important because you can apply just for one.
Yes. So firstly, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you
Fantastic.
very well. At
I'm
least
glad you can hear me well. Fantastic. Great. So to your question, I think that kind of doing a sort of introspective work about what your future plans might be is a key element in deciding which project you want to apply to. As you were saying, that's a one-time opportunity. And so I think you really want to make sure that that one-time opportunity will indeed importantly be beneficial for what your future plans might be. That's the kind of rationale that I used when I applied to my project, because before applying to the KURF project, I had developed the idea of applying for this competitive master's program in leadership and international relations. And now then you kind of see the strong thematic relevance of this master's program with the KURF project I participated in, which aimed to undertake a survey of the leadership and global leadership teaching provisions at world-leading universities. And so this translates then into a rather strong experiential as well as theoretical basis for a potentially successful application. So in summary, making sure that the project that you apply to will indeed benefit whatever your future aspirations and goals might be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Liberty, could you add anything there and help some students give some insight on how to actually approach the selection process and make sure that they are selecting an appropriate project for them?
Yeah, I completely agree with looking slightly ahead at your future plans. And that was something that also influenced me when I was looking at choosing what project I preferred and having a look at some master's courses. And I knew that I wanted to go into like clinical specifically in psychology. So I think narrowing down the projects that were very clinical focused really helped. I think as well, like just trusting your instinct, and when you're looking through the list, what ones are jumping out at you the most and why, and what specific topics just personally really interest you and you just want to find out more about them is also a good thing to do as well.
Thank you so much. And before we move on to questions about what happens during the fellowship, because I'm sure students would like to know that from your perspective as well, I would like to ask you, is there one thing or one piece of advice that you wish you knew before when you were applying, and something that can help prospective applicants at this stage? Jaren, could you share anything with us?
I would say don't stick to familiar ground too much. I think definitely take a risk. I say read the description and see what the opportunity entails, and make sure you're qualified to do it. But also, like, you don't have to have like, oh, this is what I want, I have to get this. You can try something new, and that can provide you with such a different perspective, and in like a refreshing perspective, something out of your comfort zone.
Thank you so much. And Madan, any advice that you wish you knew and you could share with students right now?
So I saw a lot of my friends' applications, a lot of whom did not get selected. And the one thing I noticed was that they were too general. So in my opinion, I think it would be helpful if in your application you're quite specific, because the person who is going to be reading your application is an expert in their field. So if you're specific, that's going to help your application a bit more. If you're talking about your passions, be specific about how those passions help you in the context of the project. If you're talking about your skill set, be specific and talk about how that skill will help you in the project. And that is something that will definitely improve your chances, I think.
Thanks so much. So let's move on to the actual fellowship. You are a fellow, you have completed this experience, so let's share it with prospective applicants. So Aldo, could you tell us, how does a day in life of a KURF fellow look like, and what kind of tasks you were given? What were you working on?
Yes, with pleasure. So I think as a sort of starting point, it's worth of mention that the day in the life of a KURF fellow will highly depend on the nature and the kind of mode of the project you're working in. The format of the project can be in person, can be hybrid, can be fully online, and that of course will highly influence whatever your research daily routine will look like. Having kind of established that, I can speak about my own experience. So my project was in a hybrid format. That meant that mostly of our meetings and discussions happened online, but then we made sure also to plan in-person sort of discussions as well. What I did is carrying out intense and diverse desk-based research. And so I would say that that kind of summarizes what my day as a KURF fellow was. Carrying out this diverse and elaborate desk-based research, and then making sure that I'm able to convey the research outputs to my supervisors on a weekly basis. Because after this kind of individual approach to research through this desk-based research, then a key component was then exchanging with the supervisor about whatever outcomes the research has shown. And I think that that was also an important kind of element to make sure that, you know, this kind of interactive approach in research is preserved.
Thank you so much. Sounds really interesting. And what about you, Vet? What was your day as a KURF fellow like, and what tasks were you working on your project?
It was actually really, really dynamic. For me, KURF, at least this one, and one of the beauty of KURF is it's not necessarily you just sit at a desk and it's not your stereotypical what you'd imagine it to be as a researcher. Just sit on your desk all day, read a lot of books and stuff. I had to, for example, go to a forest, which is quite cool. I spent a whole day in a forest. It was very creative. We did a lot of like in-person, a lot of workshops, a lot of sessions over there. And then afterwards, I had to write an academic report essay, which was, yes, that is the research part. But I also had to create a video conference type of photo exemplar of around, like, I took 330 photos and I had to pick out 15 to 20 photos to present in a visual presentation, editing it. And it was really creative and really, really dynamic and really, and it blended a lot of different things. It wasn't just me necessarily just sitting on a desk the whole day. It required a lot of critical thinking, and it required me to actually step out of my comfort zone in that sense. So that was how my typical KURF day was. It was hybrid in the sense as well. And it was a lot of times it was me actually trying to go out there, trying to just enjoy it. And one of the biggest advice I got from my professor was to actually go for walks, because it helps with creativity. So there's that element of you don't necessarily have to just sit all day in your room doing that type of things. It's very dynamic, and each and every single opportunity which is available contains all of those. So it's quite cool in that sense.
Yeah, that's very reassuring, and actually ties nicely with my next question, because students are often worried about the workload and the time commitment and how to really organize their time when they're working on KURF. So could you share some experience with us, Jaren?
So about the workload, I had various different tasks. Some were hard, some were pretty straightforward. So for example, an example of something straightforward, I had to proofread a document for Marie Curie. And then an example of something that was quite difficult was using information from a PPI meeting, so a meeting that involves, like, you know, the public, and using that information to develop a massive diagram which shows how we can decrease A&E visits in the last 3 months of someone's life. That was really difficult because I've never done that before. However, help is always available. You just need to ask. Like, they understand that you don't have all the experience in the world. You are only, you're an undergrad student. You're still in the process of like figuring things out and learning new things. So yeah, they were very helpful. I had a lot of questions, and the PhD students I worked with were really kind and were willing to help me with anything. So yeah, there are difficult tasks, but you can do them because you are given a lot of help. You just need to be brave enough to ask, really. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that's a good point as well, that you are working in a team. You have one dedicated project supervisor, but you are also often a part of a bigger team, as Jaren has mentioned, and before Dr. Amel as well. So there are different PhD students and research assistants as well that you can interact with. So you are becoming a part of a research community as well. Medan, could you share with us some of your experience when it comes to organization of workload and your time commitment?
Okay, so I think I like stand out in the panel because I got my KURF in the first year, and I think I'm the only one who did like a completely remote KURF. So the entire time the KURF was happening, I was all the way in India, and my supervisor was here in London. And my KURF was it is funny that Ved mentioned that you don't have to like sit in a room, because that's literally what I used to do, and I used to just be in my room and just typing away on my laptop, because my work required a lot of research, summarization, and like writing code basically, and trying to make things work out in a more practical way, computer science wise. My week was, I was quite intimidated at first, because I did not know how much work I would have to put in to satisfy my supervisor. But my supervisor was a very like, he was a very helpful person, and he always like he helped me every step of the way, and that made my workload actually like quite less. Like I used to work, I was supposed to work like 20 hours a week, but I had weeks where I only worked like 5 or 6 hours, and it was enough. So uh, yeah, so trying to figure out an a, a solution to your problems before you approach your supervisor or anyone else for help was something that I did a lot. I did not, because I'm off, like in my first year at least, I was not very good with teamwork. So I was like I tried to do everything on my own, and that worked out well for me. But definitely, like if you have any problems, you can always reach out. There's lots of support, and a lot depends on your supervisor. So if you have a good relation with your supervisor, that always helps. My supervisor turned out to be my personal tutor for my second year, so that was also something nice that happened. But yes.
Yeah, great story. Thank you for sharing. And it's really nice to see this diversity of experience, and also students who did KURF as first years and students who did KURF fully remotely. And it's an important point as well that your organization of time, as I have mentioned during the presentation as well, can really vary. And 1 week, as Medan has mentioned, you can work 20 hours, but the other you can work 5 or 6. Weeks can be different, they can vary, and as long as you discuss it with your project supervisor and you maintain this transparent communication, there everything should be fine. So I'm glad you encourage students to do that as well. And lastly, my last question, how do you think KURF helped you with gaining some new skills and new experiences, maybe in applying for other opportunities? Aldo, I know you have some great achievements as a KURF fellow as well. So could you give us some insight into that, as well as some words of encouragement and motivation for prospective applicants?
Yes, with pleasure. So I think that something amazing about the KURF opportunity is that it really reflects the cutting edge nature of the research that is carried out by the academic community at King's. And as an example, I can use what my experience has been. So the information that I gathered and critically evaluated throughout my fellowship was then used by my supervisor for his forthcoming book, which will be the very first book worldwide about teaching global education to teach global leadership in higher education. And this book will be co-authored by him and also a member of the senior management of King's, the Pro Vice Chancellor International. Yeah, I think that's an incredibly exciting sort of outcome. The book is actually going to be published on the 30th of November by Palgrave Macmillan, which is also an internationally renowned publishing house. And so the idea of being named within this kind of groundbreaking piece of research is something that really kind of boosts my sort of experiential set and kind of gives me confidence to then apply to later opportunities. So yeah, that's, I think, something that makes the idea clear.
Yeah, wonderful. Congratulations. That's also an amazing achievement. And Liberty, what about you? How do you think KURF helped you to gain some new skills, opportunities, and experiences?
I think getting research experience, especially for my undergrad, as we have our final year dissertation and we have to do a research project as part of that. So working already in a lab and getting experience really sort of helped me get, I think, ahead with what to expect for my final year. My supervisor's supervisor will also be supervising my dissertation project. So I think the networking that it brings, sort of undertaking KURF and the different people you'll meet in your broader lab team, is really cool and really important, and it means that you can continue working with them in the future. And I think also just for future applications and things, when you are applying to other internships, I had experience in KURF, and I think it helped me get a research job at UCL, which was great. And I think, just the stepping stones to the next thing, as well as, of course, not quite a book, as was mentioned, but, getting your name on publications and being able to be a co-author, I think is quite a common thing to come out of KURF. And that's really cool, again, when you are applying to masters and PhDs in the future as an undergrad, to have a publication, even if it's just the one, I think really sets you aside from other applicants.
Absolutely, and congratulations to you as well on your wonderful achievements, and many thanks to all of our student speakers today. Brilliant advice and great stories being shared. Thank you so much again. I hope everyone will join me in a virtual round of applause. And we have a few minutes left on this call, so let's move on to Q&A as we have a promise. I can see that there were a lot of questions in the chat that my colleagues Xavier and Jay, thank you so much, have been monitoring. I've seen one question particularly about approaching a supervisor prior to the application via email with some questions, if that's allowed. And I can already see Jay has answered that, and Dr. Amel, actually, thank you so much, Amel. I can only echo that and say this is absolutely allowed, because we as KURF team don't have specific information on each specific project. We had 200 projects, for example, last year, so obviously we're not experts in them. So you are allowed to contact project supervisor, and in fact you are given the contact details to project supervisor in the catalog. This will not be considered as an application, and applications are anonymous, so anonymity is not disrupted. So yes, you are more than welcome to contact project supervisor should you have any questions about their project specifically. I can see another question: is there anything we can do beforehand to increase our chances? I think this question maybe could be picked up by some of the supervisors, especially. Is there any supervisor who would like to maybe answer that? Is there anything students can do beforehand to increase their chances? Any of the supervisors has some advice? I can see Amal. Thank you so much.
So you're talking about before the application, right? So
I think so. I think that's what the student means. Yeah.
So I would say that one thing that can help you is to talk to your personal tutor, especially if you want to have a little bit of feedbacks on your application. You can always ask your personal tutor to have a quick look to it. And also I would say just talk to the student in the group as well, because you will know exactly how is the dynamic of the group and what is exciting about the research if you don't understand something in particular. And if you have to really advocate about your skills, so I'm thinking about students who did not necessarily had volunteering or any experience before, because this sometimes is the case. You can clearly say that this is your first application for having this opportunity to gain some knowledge, and really act your application on the motivation in that case, and just say that you are hardworking and give some evidence that you are hardworking. Could be if essentially your marks. If you have done I don't know, a computational lab or any study within your undergrads that where you had like a very high I don't know, very high mark, just highlight it and say that I am very passionate and I'm working really hard and I got this. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that great advice. I can see there is a question from a student who's an English BA student wondering what kind of projects might be possible in the English department or arts and humanities in general. And yeah, I would like to take this moment to say that we have research projects across all King's faculties. And actually, last year we had an equal number of projects per each faculty. So there are many projects to choose from in arts and humanities as well. In English department, for example, students before have worked on Shakespeare and Race Festival at the Globe Theatre, for example, or students have edited some texts, because very often lecturers from arts and humanities and English in particular are also editors of certain literary texts. So there's a lot to choose from as well. Aldo, I believe your project was from arts and humanities. Am I correct?
So my project was from the Faculty of Social Sciences and Public Policy, but I'm a student of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So there are many examples. Thank you. Thank you for correcting me here. Many examples from students from arts and humanities who actually managed to secure projects within their faculty and also beyond their faculty. So please rest assured that there will be projects available from arts and humanities as well. I can see a question about numbers and proportions. What would the proportions of that number be for each faculty, and to follow how many fellows are picked for each project? So that really depends on the funding received. Last year, we had 1 fellow per project, or if a project supervisor decided to offer the fellowship on a job share basis, so 75 hours instead of 150 at £750 instead of 1,500, that would be 2 fellows. So yes, it is very competitive. To speak about proportions of that number for each faculty, as I've said, we had an equal number of projects per faculty this year. And I think it was about 20 or 30 projects per each faculty. So you can choose from every faculty at King's. And on top of that, we also have the so-called non-faculty projects. So some research projects that are delivered by professional services staff members. So you can also participate in some projects that are delivered when it comes to working on different projects at King's that professional services staff members would need assistance with. So other than the faculties, you also have that option. So loads of different options to choose from. I can see we are running out of time. I'm very sorry to all the students whose questions were not answered. I do encourage you to have a look at our KEATS page. We'll pop the link in the chat in a second. There are some information about KURF there as well, and the recording of this session will be available on that page as well. Once again, thank you so much for everyone attending today, as well as, of course, our brilliant guest speakers, project supervisors, and students. I'm sure this was a very informative session for everybody. Do keep an eye on the program of the King's Edge Festival. We still have a few days left. I hope you will attend more events and hopefully see you around. Good luck with your KURF applications next semester, and thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.